Hello, everyone. I'm Cherry Kubota at the Ohio State University. Welcome to Indoor Ag Science Cafe, January 2021. Happy New Year. It's going to be a good year for you and everyone. Thank you for being with us today to learn about many science and technologies and practices of indoor ag farming. All right, so let me go quickly through the usual intro. So this is a outreach program funded by USDA, NIFA SCRI program. And then organizations funded are Michigan State University, the Ohio State University, Purdue University, the University of Arizona. But we work together with industry members to promote these technologies, industry sectors together. So we are doing this monthly, and then first part is recorded, and then the question and answers are not recorded. So the idea is you feel comfortable to ask any questions during this 1 hour introduction. So we have two cafes so far. Today is January 12th, and then we will have a professor from Michigan State University, Bridget Behe, in a moment. And then February, I want to take a look at neighboring country, Mexico. What's the status in Mexico? And then Cara Garcia, who is affiliated in microgreen, small company in Mexico, and then also Hot Americas Mexico chapter, which division. She's gonna share her knowledge and experience in Mexico. So that's gonna be interesting. And then the third one, I'm still working on the scheduling, but I'm going to invite, and then they are already tentatively agreeing, but we just need to find a date to introduce the grant program called SBIR, Small Business Innovation Research Program from NIFA, USDA. This is a grant program for you if you are a small business to apply to get R&D money funded. So I think it's a good one to share. So something to look forward to. All right, so today we have Dr. Behe with us, and then she's gonna talk about considerations for marketing vertical farm food products to consumers. She's a marketing person for both ornamental crops and then also edible crops. So the specialty crop is her specialty. So, all right, so I'm gonna stop sharing and then have Dr. Behe with us. You are muted, Bridget.
There we go. Okay, so thanks everybody. Thank you, Sherry, for the introduction, and I appreciate everybody joining us, joining me this morning. And condolences to the Ohio State fans on your football game last night. As I got my master's from Ohio State, so it was a little sad for me to watch that. But we're here today to talk about some considerations for marketing the products that come out of vertical farms. And a lot of times growers may feel pretty distant from their consumers. So what I want to do today is try to bridge that gap just a little bit more. So we do have very strong evidence that demand is growing. And if you want an interesting podcast to subscribe to, I like the Hartman Group. They do a lot of food marketing. Their infographics are absolutely tremendous. But I was listening last week to the Insatiable Appetite podcast, and they were talking about food trends, and plant-based foods are obviously increasing in demand. But people want things that are less processed, and they want to know how and where their plants are grown. So that's really kind of sets the stage for us. And so what I want to do first, I want to talk about marketing in general. And this is a definition that was given to us by the American Marketing Association. And they say that marketing is an activity, a set of institutions, sometimes departments. But here's the crux. Here's the crux of the definition, and the process is for creating, communicating, delivering, and exchanging offerings that have value. And those things have value to customers, clients, partners, and society at large. But the key word here is really value. And I liken value to beauty. It's really in the eye of the beholder. And I think too often we tend to think that our customers think like us, look like us, and act like us, and it gives us this distorted perception of looking in the mirror and believing that everything is the way that I see it, when in fact it isn't. And so it's this perception of value that becomes really important, and that we as marketers can manage that perception. So when we think about this notion of value, what we think about is the relationship between what I get for what I pay. And if you think about it, one of my common examples is Starbucks. So I'm a tea drinker. My dad's a coffee drinker. He can't even imagine paying $3 for a cup of coffee at Starbucks because he doesn't perceive that to have any value. But yet, think about us pre-pandemic. The stopping at the coffee shop was very routine for many people. They saw value in that. Maybe it was because the coffee shop could give us something different, or we didn't have to prepare it ourselves, or whatever that was. What we got for the $3, we perceived to have tremendous value. So this helps us understand that value is a matter of perspective. And sometimes we can shape that perspective. But understanding that perspective really underlies everything that we do in marketing. So I want to go next to this ways that we assign value. And this is not my work. Sheth, Newman, and Gross in 1991 shared this theory of consumption values. And so there really are 5 ways that buyers and sellers assign value. The first one is functional value. What does it do? Does a microwave oven heat my tea? Does my car get me from point A to point B? And in the greens world, is it fresh? Is it something that tastes really good? Does it do a good job of filling me up? And maybe there are some positive outcomes that I get better nutrition or lower calories or other health benefits from that. So does it do what it's supposed to do is the first element of functional value. But then we think about, how is it different? How is it new or novel? Because things that are new and novel often have greater perceived value. If we think about mint as being fragrant, or a different color of lettuce, or even a different flavor. Is it sweeter? Does it have a little more peppery? I really like arugula. I like the pepperiness of that. So understanding the novelty or the sensory value of a product is another way that we derive value. Conditional value is a little tough for vertical farmed products. I mean, my favorite example is the American floral symbol. Everybody knows that the red rose means I love you. So about all I could come up with was, if you're eating iceberg lettuce, maybe you're eating yesterday's greens. That's probably not the best example, but I like the rose example. And then these last 2 really talk about how we feel perceptually, what we think about that product. Does the customer get joy or a positive feeling from buying or eating it? And so we probably feel good when we eat greens, unless they upset our stomach, but hopefully that's not the case. But we feel good because we're full and we made a good nutritional choice. Now, another dimension of this is the fear of missing out. And if all my friends are eating hip, cool greens, I might have FOMO, or fear of missing out. The opposite of that is probably doesn't have much bearing on the vertical farmed products. But, you know, if you're trying to find a product that's rare or extremely difficult, sometimes that purchase process can really drain us or cause us a lot of stress. So the emotional value, we want it to be more positive than negative, is another way that we derive value. And then social value. Again, FOMO comes into play here because if eating this product or having this product or consuming this product can help me look good among my friends in my social group, you know, then I have derived more value from it. So think about people who post the hip cool greens on their Instagram posts, you know, with what it is that they're eating. So we have all of these different dimensions of value to think about, but most of the time we are focused on that functional value. Does it do what it's supposed to do? So let's take those elements of value and see, where do they come from? And value can really be derived from 3 types of product attributes. The first one is our search attributes. And these things are characteristics about the product that are really easy to see, even before we purchase. And a lot of times our purchase probably begins with some of these search attributes. So these attributes would include the color of the greens, the shape of them, how large or how small they are, and always, 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 price is a search attribute. The second place where we get these value, where we get the value derived from, are experience attributes. And a lot of times we can only evaluate these after purchase. So does it have a peppery flavor that I like? Is it sweet? Is it crunchier? So, you know, and this is why people hand out tastes, you know, not during COVID, but pre-COVID. This is why we did a lot of taste testing in the retailers, because if you can get it in the mouth, a lot of times you can get it in the cart, because these experience attributes show us a different way that we can derive value. It's giving us the things that we want. And then the last kind of way we get benefits, or the last place where we derive that value, are from credence attributes. And these are really difficult to evaluate even after a customer buys them. So the customer would rely on the reputation of either the brand or the retailer or the producer to help them understand some of these credence attributes. And these are things like the production method. How were these greens grown? The carbon footprint, was it very intensive and shipped halfway around the planet, or was it fairly limited and grown locally? And then I like to lump a lot of these other benefits into the credence attributes, you know, making me feel good, giving me you know, part of a healthy meal. And is it an economic benefit? Am I helping to support local businesses? So we have these ways to derive value. And a lot of times the value comes from one of these 3 product attributes. Now, if you think about producers, growers, what attributes do growers often focus on? Well, it's the search attributes, those things that can be readily evaluated during the purchase. And these questions, or these attributes, the search attributes, answer the question, what? What am I buying? I'm buying this green, it has this color shape, it is this much of a price. Well, that's okay, but that really is just talking mainly about the functional value. What about these other ways to derive value? What about these other attributes? Well, I think what we should be doing as good marketers is starting with the question why. And I want to play this short video from Simon Sinek, and it's all about starting with the why.
There's a pattern. As it turns out, all the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, whether it's Apple or Martin Luther King or the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate the exact same way, and it's the complete opposite to everyone else. All I did was codify it. and it's probably the world's simplest idea. I call it the golden circle. Why, how, what? This little idea explains why some organizations and some leaders are able to inspire where others aren't. Let me define the terms really quickly. Every single person, every single organization on the planet knows what they do, 100%. Some know how they do it, whether you call it your differentiating value proposition or your proprietary process or your USP. But very, very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. And by why, I don't mean to make a profit. That's a result. It's always a result. By why, I mean what's your purpose? What's your cause? What's your belief? Why does your organization exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anyone care? Well, as a result, the way we think, the way we act, the way we communicate is from the outside in. It's obvious. We go from the clearest thing to the fuzziest thing. But the inspired leaders and the inspired organizations, regardless of their size, regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside out. Let me give you an example. I use Apple because they're easy to understand and everybody gets it. If Apple were like everyone else, a marketing message from them might sound like this. We make great computers. They're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Want to buy one? Meh. And that's how most of us communicate. That's how most marketing is done, that's how most sales is done, and that's how most of us communicate interpersonally. We say what we do, we say how we're different or how we better, and we expect some sort of behavior, a purchase, a vote, something like that. Here's our new law firm. We have the best lawyers with the biggest clients. We have, we always perform for our clients, do business with us. Here's our new car. It gets great gas mileage. It has, leather seats. Buy our car. But it's uninspiring. Here's how Apple actually communicates. Everything we do, we believe in challenging the status quo. We believe in thinking differently. The way we challenge the status quo is by making our products beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Want to buy one? Totally different, right? You're ready to buy a computer from me. All I did was reverse the order of the information. What it proves to us is that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. This explains why every single person in this room is perfectly comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But we're also perfectly comfortable buying an MP3 player from Apple, or a phone from Apple, or a DVR from Apple.
Okay, so what we really need to do, and I love that video. If you want to add something to your reading list, that Start With Why is a really great book. That video has been around for quite a while. But the buyer and the seller's whys really have to connect, and that is really the strongest connection that we can have. Otherwise, if you're competing on price, it's a search attribute, somebody can always undercut you. But when we connect on the why buy it and why sell it, that's really where we get the strongest connection. And like Simon Sinek said, that's when we get comfortable buying different products from that same brand or producer or whatever the business is, because we connect very, very strongly on the why. Now, for the vertical farm, the whys may begin as nutrition. There's probably some dietary reason, but I believe a lot of those translate into a better quality of life. Really, the deeper why translates to a better quality of life. And let me show you, let me give you some examples. So this is some survey work that was done actually by a blind and shade company last year, just released a few days ago. But they asked, what are some of the reasons that you purchased plants since March of 2020, the beginning of the pandemic? And so on the surface, we see to grow my own food, about 57%. But notice that it was much stronger for the boomers than it was for the Gen X or the millennials. So on the surface, that looks like a beginning of a reason why. But in the study a little bit further, what they asked was, to what extent has gardening decreased your stress over the last few months? And so look at the high percentage of moderately reduced and greatly reduced stress. we have 70% of the sample saying that gardening decreased their stress. So it really gets to a deeper why. On the surface, it was to grow more food, but more deeply, these whys really help me to feel better. They improve my quality of life. And so people may start out with some of these search attribute kind of reasons, but when we dig down a little more psychologically, ultimately the whys help me feel better. I mean, otherwise, car commercials would simply talk about the cost of the car parts and that it gets me from point A to point B. But we don't see that in car commercials. They are communicating that you're going to feel better or feel safer or feel some deep reason why you should buy that particular automobile. We know that whys motivate very deeply. And in fact, a colleague, Dr. Charlie Hall and Dr. Melinda Knuth, who is now, she's at the University of Florida in a postdoc position, they put together the research-based evidence for the emotional and mental health benefits of plants, the physiological health benefits of plants, and the social and mental well-being benefits of plants. And this gives us some resources to access the research-based information. But what we wanted to do, we took these motivations, we took these deeper whys, and we wanted to understand what was motivating some of the purchases of plants, both edible plants and ornamental plants last year. So we've found some pre-existing scales or questionnaire items that would help us measure these different dimensions of the whys or some of the motivations. So in measuring the plant benefits, we adapted this scale from Beard and Rajeb to measure the mental health and well-being benefits, the educational benefits, the social well-being benefits, the emotional well-being benefits, the physical well-being benefits, and then the aesthetics. So we asked a sample slightly over 1,000 folks that had both bought plants and didn't buy plants. And I just want to share with you a couple of the findings from this, because I think they help us to really understand some of the deeper whys and how they vary from customer to customer. So these are the 6 benefits of plants. And what we see here, the green bar represents about 300 people who are Gen Z, and they were born 1995 to 2015. The yellow bar represents a group of millennials, just over 200, and they were individuals born 1980 to 1994. And then the red bar, we skipped Gen X because of cost limitations, budget limitations. And then boomers, we compared them to boomers, and these are individuals born 1944 to 1964. So what we see here are the standardized scores derived that the groups derived from the different types of benefits. And the first thing that I want you to notice is that the Gen Z did not get any psychological benefits from their plant interactions, nor did they get very much emotional benefit from that. We noticed then that the millennials were the ones who actually derived some of the greater benefits, and look at how high, relatively speaking, the social benefits are from their interactions from plants. And I'm going to come back to that in just a second. And then the boomers were more like the Gen Z. They didn't derive as much educational, social, or physiological benefits from their interactions with plants compared to the millennials. Now let's talk about this social benefit here. Knowing that this work was done after the pandemic had started, most of us were in isolation, how do you think these social benefits were derived? Well, they were talking about their plants online. They were using social media to talk about their plants, to share their activities, and so they derived great social benefit from their interactions with plants. So what we see here are a couple of things. The diversity in the benefits that are derived by age group. There are other ways that we could segregate this group and make some comparisons. But it helps us understand that not everybody gets the same benefit from the same purchase. And then how would you use this kind of information in communicating to customers? Well, you could say things like, keep your distance but not from plants. Did you know that time spent in natural settings can help reduce mental fatigue, recovery time, and improve concentration levels? Or another fact, did you know that having 10 or more trees in a city block on average improves personal health perceptions comparable to a $10,000 increase in annual personal income or being 7 years younger? See, communicating, understanding what benefits are resonating with someone, and then communicating those benefits really helps people derive more value. And it's really the benefits. It's really the psychological benefit, the social benefit that helps us to provide that value, but people are also more likely to make a purchase. So this was another study that we did comparing, these are digitally identical plants. And what we showed them was a plant that had the price only. We had features, and those, remember, are the search attributes, what those plants are. And then the benefits, the things like making you happier, providing you with a cleaner environment. When we showed people the digitally identical plant at a low price point, they were pretty likely to buy that with the price only. But as we increased the price from a moderate to a high price point, it was really the benefit that they was encouraging them to be more likely to make that purchase. So what we take from this particular graph is when we are marketing things at a higher price point, it's really the benefits that help people be more inclined to make the purchase. When things are on sale, all we need is the price information itself. And then at a moderate price point, we see that the features and benefits can work synergistically to help increase likelihood to buy. But really, it's the benefit that helps sell it the best. And, you know, we see this in different places. So how do you sell? You obviously, the vertical farmers wouldn't be selling grafted tomato plants, but how do you sell a $12 grafted tomato plant? Well, you do it by not harping on the price or not promoting the price, but you talk about the benefits, that it gets higher yield, it has improved resistance to pest diseases and stresses, it has stronger growth, larger fruit, and a longer harvest season. Those are the benefits. Those are the credence attributes that people can't evaluate when they're looking at that, when they're searching for the product. And so communicating those really helps highlight the benefits and increases the likelihood to buy. We really should be focusing, particularly at higher price points, on the credence attributes. They are much more difficult to evaluate. And here, you know, I just want to reinforce that consumers really are relying on the producer or the retailer to help them understand what those benefits are, and really conveying all of these other pieces of value oftentimes comes from the credence attributes. So I want to kind of move away from that and talk about two other whys, why people might be buying those products. And for the year that we just closed out, boredom was kind of a big issue. People were very limited in what they could do. And so we adapted the scale from Vodanovic, Wallace, and Cass to evaluate boredom proneness. And food security was another question. When the pandemic first started, I think a lot of people were very concerned about the accessibility, particularly of fresh produce. And so food security, we don't have to be hungry to be food insecure. We took this scale and adapted this to measure food security. Excuse me. So when we look at boredom proneness, again, for Gen Z millennials and boomers, it was not a really big surprise, but the youngest age cohort suffered the most from boredom proneness. And what we also saw was that the boomers were the most food secure. So if we talk about change, that's probably a message that's going to resonate more with Gen Z. And if we talk about, food security, that's a message that's probably going to resonate better with the Gen Z and with the millennials. Now, I'll give another shout out for the Hartman Group. They do an excellent job with a lot of their infographics. And so this was one that came out pretty mid-year last year. And they talk about making the big shift to cooking. And so here's really an opportunity, especially for vertical farmers, to talk about alleviating some food boredom by providing customers not only with new greens and new flavors, but also helping them to understand new ways to use some of those products. I think good marketers focus on use. I'm going to repeat that. I think good marketers focus on use because that helps us connect with our customers, because when they're buying those greens or they're buying those herbs, they're probably thinking about a use. And this is where I get things like baking soda and even baby oil. You think about the number of things that you can do with baking soda. We can brush our teeth with it, we can clean with it, and you sell more baking soda when you have and offer more uses. And so taking this concept of boredom and combining it with either new greens or new ways to use and eat and enjoy them can help us identify more market potential. So focus on the use, not just on the sale. And here I'm going to tuck one little piece in because I thought, I couldn't think of a better place to put it in, so I'm going to put it in here. I call it the big little revolution, both in terms of packages and in vegetables. Little is huge right now. And so as we see people trying not to waste food and smaller households, we really need to do our homework about who is buying our products and think not only about microgreens and smaller sizes, which are popular, but also think about package sizes, because it's really, who buys a 20-pound bag of potatoes anymore? I remember as a kid seeing them, but they just aren't there because our diets are more diverse and people don't want to waste food. So think about appealing to the smaller cultivar and the smaller package size. And I want to finish up with safety being the new luxury. This is going and has affected all of us, but it's going to continue to influence us. This was a study that came out mid-year last year from Podium Inc. And they're saying that, the shadow, Wall Street Journal saying the shadow of the pandemic is going to last 2024 and beyond. I'm not willing to go that far out, but I do know that people have gotten used to a new reality. They still long for that old reality. But when we're talking about safety, that is something I don't think that's going to go away. And so we did some measures of shopping anxiety. And at first, when I looked at these results, I thought, I've got these age groups transposed, and nope, this is correct. The baby boomers had the lowest shopping anxiety, and it was actually the Gen Z and the millennials who had the highest shopping anxiety. So we're going to need to address shopping anxiety and purchasing products as we continue to move into 2021. What makes customers feel safe? It's really their perception. Do they see obvious cleaning efforts? Do they see masks being worn? Do they see social distancing? And what are their checkout options? Now, for the vertical farm, this safety issue is going to continue to be very important. And so they can't see the cleaning activities that you and your staff are doing, but they need to be assured of those things. And so talking about those safety precautions that you're doing, both to keep customers and employees safe, people want to understand that you're taking this cleanliness as seriously as you possibly can. I'm going to loop one more thing in that really continues to have a lot of traction with customers. The research findings are very clear that if people buy locally, the local economy benefits. And we need to continue, if you are marketing relatively regionally or locally, this is something that can help you derive added value. And some customers, not all, but some customers are willing to pay more for local products. So when we think about developing a mix of messages, both for online, which is probably a large part of the vertical farms communication message, and offline, it has to start with benefits. It has to include those credence attributes. I would highly recommend that it include shopping locally and also include some of the things that you're doing to keep both customers and employees safe. We really need more whys from the vertical farm. And I did a quick little search. I grabbed these couple of what I will call, excuse me, important whys, but I think there are some deeper ones here. Obviously, the environment, water use, I think nutrition is another one, but more work needs to be done to understand what are some of the real benefits that people are deriving. What are the whys that people are deriving from products that are grown on the vertical farm? So in summary, I think the demand for vertical farm greens is very strong. It shows opportunities for increasing. But we need to think about how we communicate with our customer base. And it is helpful for the producer to work with retailers, or if they're going direct to consumers, they need to understand what are some of the important whys that need to be communicated. And so of search, experience, and credence attributes, we really need to focus on the credence attributes, because that is what helps customers understand your why, and it connects your why with their why. Remember what Simon Sinek said, people buy benefits, they don't buy features. They buy those credence attributes. Once the search attributes are done and over and I have it, that's not really helping me very much. Sure, I need to know what color those greens are, what their flavor is, and the price, but that's not why I'm buying that product. Value is really the key word, and value, like beauty, is in the eye of the beholder. We really need to strive to understand those underlying motivations, the whys. Otherwise, it can begin as nutrition or in the environment, but really it ultimately improves my quality of life. It enhances how I feel. It enhances how I believe I feel. Otherwise, just think about it. Next time you watch a car commercial, think about that. They would just focus on the cost of the parts and getting from A to B, but they don't. It's about how that car makes me feel, or how that watch makes me feel. I mean, sure, it tells time, but there's a gazillion devices out there that can tell time. What makes this piece different is how I feel about it. The whys are really going to differ by consumer, sometimes by age, sometimes by living in an urban area versus a rural area. So market segmentation is really important, and more work needs to be done to really understand what are the segments of customers who are buying produce that's grown in the vertical farm. Safety is the new luxury. You will need to continue to communicate your safety practices, I believe, long after COVID is over. And Boredom gives you a really nice opportunity to introduce new cultivars and also new recipes, but focus on the use, not just on the sale. I'll bring to your attention a weekly podcast that I do for free. It's on my website called connecttoconsumer.com. And I picked out just a couple of podcasts, and these are not like 50, 60 minutes. These are 10 to 15 minute podcasts. So that's why I call them marketing munchies, to help many people in the horticulture industry become better marketers. And so we just started our 4th season in 2021. So here are a couple of podcasts I think that might be of interest to you. And again, they're available for free on my connecttoconsumer.com website. And so with that, I will finish up the presentation part and see if Sheree wants to open it up for questions.
All right. What a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.